Hey, Robbo.
Yeah, what?
Let's step in here for a quick one. Sounds like there's a little bit of a gathering in this little pub here.
Yeah, okay, mate, just a quick one.
Yeah, 2 beers, thanks, mate. Thanks, mate. Hey, Robbo, it looks like one of these live karaoke things. Oh, here's this bloke with his little jockey mate coming up now.
Immanuel Kant was a real pissant who was very rarely stable. Heidegger was a boozy beggar who could think you under the table. David Hume could out-consume Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. And Wittgenstein was a beery swine who was just as sloshed as Schlegel. There's nothing Nietzsche couldn't teach about the raising of the wrist. Socrates himself was permanently pissed. John Stewart loved his own free will on how
Shandy was particularly ill.
Plato the same could stick it away. Half a pint of whiskey every day. Aristotle was a bugger for the bottle. Hobbes was fond of his dram. And Rene Descartes was a drunken fart. I drink before I am. Yes, Socrates himself is particularly missed. I love little bugger when he's pissed.
Bloody nice singing, Robbo. You know that song pretty well. You know, I always wondered who the bloody hell those philosophers were.
Immanuel Kant was a real pissant who was very rarely stable.
Immanuel Kant, 22nd of April 1724 to 12th of February 1804, was a German philosopher and one of the central Enlightenment thinkers. Born in Königsberg, Kant's comprehensive and systematic works in epistemology, metaphysics, ethics and aesthetics have made him one of the most influential figures in modern Western philosophy. He has been called the father of modern ethics, father of modern aesthetics, and by bringing together rationalism and empiricism, the father of modern philosophy.
Heidegger was a boozy beggar who could think you under the table.
Martin Heidegger, 26th of September 1889 to the 26th of May 1976, was a German philosopher who is best known for contributions to phenomenology, hermeneutics and existentialism. He is among the most important and influential philosophers of the 20th century. He has been widely criticised for supporting Adolf after his election as rector at the University of Freiburg in 1933, and there has been controversy about his relationship therein. Dirty bastard.
Hey, Robbo, that bloody Heidegger, I don't think I want to have a beer with him. Bloody smart ass.
David Hume could out-consume.
David Hume, 26th of April 1711 to the 25th of August 1776, was a Scottish Enlightenment philosopher, historian, economist, librarian and essayist who is best known today for his highly influential system of philosophical empiricism, skepticism and naturalism. Beginning with a treatise of human nature, 1739 to 40, Hume strove to create a naturalistic science of man that examined the psychological basis of human nature. Hume argued against the existence of innate ideas, positing that all human knowledge derives solely from experience. This places him with Francis Bacon and Eggs, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke and George Berkeley as an empiricist.
Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
You're putting me on.
No, it's pronounced Frankenstein.
Do you also say Froderick?
Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel.
27th of August 1770 to 14th of November 1831, was a German philosopher and one of the most influential figures of German idealism and 19th century philosophy. His influence extends across the entire range of contemporary philosophical topics, from metaphysical issues and epistemology and ontology to political philosophy, the philosophy of history, philosophy of art, philosophy of religion, and the history of, you guessed it, philosophy.
And Wittgenstein was a beery swine.
Ludwig Joseph Johann Wittgenstein, 26th of April 1889 to the 29th of April 1951, was an Austrian philosopher who worked primarily in logic, the philosophy of mathematics, the philosophy of mind, and the philosophy of language. He is considered by some to be the greatest philosopher of the 20th century. From 1929 to 1947, Wittgenstein taught at the University of Cambridge. In spite of his position during his entire life, only one book of his philosophy was published, the 75-page Logist Philosophische, which appeared together with an English translation in 1922 under the Latin title Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. His only other published works were an article, Some Remarks on Logical Form, 1929, a book review, and a children's dictionary. His voluminous manuscripts were edited and published posthumously. The first and best known of this posthumous series is the 1953 book Philosophical Investigations. A survey among American university and college teachers ranked the Investigations as the most important book of the 20th century philosophy, standing out as the one crossover masterpiece in 20th century philosophy, appealing across diverse specializations and philosophical orientations.
It was just a Schlegel.
Carl Wilhelm Friedrich Schlegel.
10th of March 1772 to the 12th of January 1829, was a German poet, literary critic, philosopher, philologist and Indologist with his older brother August Wilhelm Schlegel. He was one of the main figures of Jena Romanticism. Born into a fervently Protestant family, Schlegel rejected religion as a young man in favour of atheism and individualism. He entered university to study law, but instead focused on classical literature. He began a career as a writer and lecturer and founded journals such as the Athenaeum. In 1808, Schlegel returned to Christianity as a married man, with both him and his wife being baptized into the Catholic Church. This conversion ultimately led to his estrangement from family and old friends. He moved to Austria in 1809, where he became a diplomat and journalist in service of Clemens von Metternich, the foreign minister of the Austrian Empire. Schlegel died in 1829 at the age of 56. Schlegel was a promoter of the Romantic movement and inspired Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Adam Mickiewicz, and Kazimierz Brzezinski, the first to notice what became known as Grimm's Law. Schlegel was a pioneer in Indo-European studies, comparative linguistics, and morphological typology, publishing in 1819 the first theory linking the Indo-Iranian and German languages under the Aryan group.
Robbo, talking about swallowing bloody dictionaries. Get a couple of more beers. I've got to go have a quick slash, mate.
Okay.
There's nothing Nietzsche couldn't teach about the raising of the wrist.
Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche.
Robbo, that mustache needs its own postcode.
15th of October 1844 to the 25th of August 1900, was a German philosopher, prose poet, cultural critic, philologist and composer, whose work has exerted a profound influence on contemporary philosophy.
2 more beers, thanks, mate. This bloody philosophy's thirsty work, isn't it?
Nietzsche's work spans philosophical polemics, poetry, cultural criticism and fiction, whilst displaying a fondness for aphorism and irony. Prominent elements of his philosophy include his radical critique of truth in favour of perspectivism, a genealogical critique of religion and Christian morality, and a related theory of master-slave morality. The aesthetic affirmation of life in response to both the death of God and the profound crisis of nihilism, the notion of Apollonian and Dionysian forces, and a characterization of the human subject as the expression of competing wills, collectively understood as the will to power. He also developed influential concepts such as the Übermensch and his doctrine of eternal return. In his later work, he became increasingly preoccupied with the creative powers of the individual to overcome cultural and moral mores in pursuit of new values and aesthetic health. His body of work touched a wide range of topics, including art, philology, history, music, religion, tragedy, culture, and science, and drew inspiration from Greek tragedy as well as figures such as Zoroaster, Arthur Schopenhauer, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Richard Wagner, and Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
Socrates himself was permanently pissed.
Socrates, 470 to 399 BC, was a Greek philosopher from Athens who is credited as the founder of Western philosophy and among the first moral philosophers of the ethical tradition of thought. An enigmatic figure, Socrates authored no texts and is known mainly through the posthumous accounts of classical writers, particularly his students Plato and Xenophon. These accounts are written as dialogues in which Socrates and his interlocutors examine a subject in the style of question and answer. They gave rise to the Socratic dialogue literary genre. Contradictory accounts of Socrates make a reconstruction of his philosophy nearly impossible, a situation known as the Socratic problem. Socrates was a polarizing figure in Athenian society. In 399 BC, he was accused of impiety and corrupting the youth. After a trial that lasted a day, he was sentenced to death. He spent his last day in prison, refusing offers to help him escape.
John Stuart Mill, of his own free will, on half a pint of shandy, was particularly ill.
John Stuart Mill, 20th of May 1806 to the 7th of May 1873, was an English philosopher, political economist, politician and civil servant. One of the most influential thinkers in the history of classical liberalism, he contributed widely to social theory and political economy. Dubbed the most influential English-speaking philosopher of the 19th century by the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, he conceived of liberty as justifying the freedom of the individual in opposition to unlimited state and social control. Mill was a proponent of utilitarianism, an ethical theory developed by his predecessor Jeremy Bentham. He contributed to the investigation of scientific methodology, though his knowledge of the topic was based on the writings of others, notably William Wheel, John Herschel and Auguste Comte, and research carried out for Mill by Alexander Bain. He engaged in written debate with Wheel, a member of the Liberal Party and author of the early feminist work, The Subjection of Women. Mill was also the second member of Parliament to call for women's suffrage after Henry Hunt in 1832.
Plato, they say, could stick it away, half a crate of whiskey every day.
Mate, how would you like your Palmer?
On a Plato, mate.
Plato, 428 to 348 BC, was an ancient Greek philosopher born in Athens during the classical period in ancient Greece. In Athens, Plato founded the Academy, a philosophical school where he taught the philosophical doctrines that would later become known as Platoism. Plato, or Platon, was a pen name derived apparently from the nickname given to him by his wrestling coach, Spiros Arion, allegedly a reference to his physical broadness. According to Alexander of Miletus, quoted by Diogenes of Sinope, his actual name was Aristocles, son of Ariston, of the demi-Colitus, being a district of Athens. Colitis? I got a bad case of colitis. Plato was an innovator of the written dialogue and dialectic forms in philosophy. He raised problems for what later became all the major areas of both theoretical philosophy and practical philosophy. His most famous contribution is the theory of forms, which has been interpreted as advancing a solution to what is now known as the problem of universals. He is also the namesake of Platonic love and the Platonic solids. His own most decisive philosophical influences are usually thought to have been, along with Socrates, the pre-Socratics, Pythagoras, Heraclitus and Parmenides. Although few of his predecessors' works remain extant, and much of what we know about these figures today derives from Plato himself. Along with his teacher Socrates and his student Aristotle, who was a bugger for the bottle, Plato is a central figure in the history of philosophy. Unlike the work of nearly all of his contemporaries, Plato's entire body of work is believed to have survived intact for over 2,400 years. Although their popularity has fluctuated, Plato's works have consistently been read and studied. Through Neoplatonism, Plato also greatly influenced both Christian and Islamic philosophy. In modern times, Alfred North Whitehead famously said, "The safest general characterization of the European philosophical tradition is that it consists of a series of footnotes to Plato."
What'll it be, mate?
Mate, can you enlighten me with 2 more beers?
Okay.
Hey, Robbo.
Yeah,
I've learnt one thing today.
what is it?
Never get into a shout with the philosophy department of the University of Woolloomooloo.
Aristotle was a bugger for the bottle.
Aristotle was an ancient Greek philosopher and polymath who lived between 384 to 322 BC. His writings cover a broad range of subjects spanning the natural sciences, philosophy, linguistics, economics, politics, psychology, and the arts. As the founder of the Peripatetic School of Philosophy in the Lyceum in Athens, he began the wider Aristotelian tradition that followed, which set the groundwork for the development of modern science. Little is known about Aristotle's life. He was born in the city of Stagira in northern Greece during the classical period. His father, Nicomachus, died when Aristotle was a child, and he was brought up by a guardian. At 17 or 18 years of age, he joined Plato's Academy in Athens and remained there until the age of 37. Shortly after Plato died, Aristotle left Athens and, at the request of Philip II of Macedon, tutored his son Alexander the Great beginning in 343 BC. He established a library in the Lyceum which helped him to produce many of his hundreds of books on papyrus scrolls. Though Aristotle wrote many elegant treatises and dialogues for publication, only around a third of his original output has survived, none of it intended for publication. Aristotle provided a complex synthesis of the various philosophies existing prior to him. It was above all from his teachings that the West inherited its intellectual lexicon, as well as problems and methods of inquiry. As a result, his philosophy has exerted a unique influence on almost every form of knowledge in the West, and it continues to be a subject of contemporary philosophical discussion.
Hobbes was fond of his dram.
Thomas Hobbes, 15th of April 1588 to the 14th of December 1679, was an English philosopher. Hobbes is best known for his 1651 book Leviathan, in which he expounds an influential formulation of social contract theory. In addition to political philosophy, Hobbes contributed to a diverse array of other fields, including history, jurisprudence, geometry, theology, and ethics, as well as philosophy in general. He is considered to be one of the founders of modern political philosophy.
And Rene Descartes was a drunken fart. I drink, therefore I am.
Rene Descartes, 31st of March 1596 to the 11th of February 1650, was a French philosopher, scientist and mathematician, widely considered a seminal figure in the emergence of modern philosophy and science. Mathematics was central to his method of inquiry, and he connected the previously separate fields of geometry and algebra into analytic geometry. Descartes spent much of his working life in the Dutch Republic, initially serving the Dutch States Army, later becoming a central intellectual of the Dutch Golden Age. Although he served a Protestant state and was later counted as a deist by critics, Descartes was Roman Catholic. That's right, he was Roman all over the place. Many elements of Descartes' philosophy have precedence in late Aristotelianism, the revived Stoicism of the 16th century, or in earlier philosophers like Augustine. In his natural philosophy, he differed from the schools on two major points. First, he rejected the splitting of corporeal substance into matter and form. Second, he rejected any appeal to final ends, divine or natural, in explaining natural phenomena. In his theology, he insists on the absolute freedom of God's act of creation, refusing to accept the authority of previous philosophers. Descartes frequently set his views apart from the philosophers who preceded him. In the opening section of The Passions of the Soul, an early modern treatise on emotions, Descartes goes so far as to assert that he will write on this topic as if no one had written on these matters before. His best-known philosophical statement is cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, found in Discourse on the Method, 1637, and Principles of Philosophy, 1644. Brr.
Hey, Robbo. That was a good afternoon, wasn't it? It's not often you go into a pub for a Palmer and a pot and you get to swallow a dictionary for dessert. Bloody philosophers. Geez, they could put it away. Oh!
Thanks for coming out tonight. Now, everybody, one more time. Here we go.
Immanuel Kant was a real piece and he was very rarely stable. Heidegger was a boozy beggar who could think you under the table. David Hume could act and shoe, Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, and Wittgenstein was a beery swine who was just as slosh as Schlegel. There's nothing Nietzsche couldn't teach about the raising of the wrist. Socrates himself was permanently pissed. John stood well on his own free will, on half upon a shed it was particular real. Plato the sacred sticking away